one honors lesson. And this honors is actually a 9th grade topic that you'll do a lot more with next year. So this one is called Solving Systems. In 8th grade, we only solve systems by graphing them, finding where they cross. In 9th grade, you need to be able to solve them by using substitution. So substitution method, this is the method that we're talking about, is a method for solving systems by equations by substituting equations within one another. So you are going to solve for one of the equations and make it so that it's either x equals or y equals. So you're going to either solve for x or y. So if you look down here at this first example, you can see how they're both y equals. Okay, so they've already been solved for either x or y. You don't have to solve both, you just need to solve one. Step number 2, you're then going to substitute the x or y value for which you solved into the other equation and solve for the unknown variable. This is why it gets confusing to you. This tells me that y equals this. This tells me that y equals this. That means wherever I see y equal to y, they need to be equal. My y's need to be equal. So what this is saying is this is what y equals right here. Since y equals that, I'm going to plug this 4x minus 1 into that y. So instead of saying y equals this and y equals this y is equal to 4x minus 1, which means that y right there also has to be equal to 4x minus 1. This also tells me that this side is equal to 2x minus 5, which should make sense because my y's need to equal each other. They're the same. Now I'm going to solve just like I normally would solve this. So I'm going to solve this. I need to get my x's to one side. So I'm going to move these x's to this side, leaving me with 2x minus 1 equals negative 5. I then need to get x's alone, so I'm going to add 1 to both sides, leaving me with 2x equals negative 4. Last, I'm going to divide both sides by 2. This tells me that x equals negative 2. So that's telling me that they both share an x value of negative 2. But now I need to know, what does y actually equal? I know that y equals 4x's minus 1, or I could use 2x's and subtract 5 and get my y. But I've now found x, I now need to find my y because I'm looking for an ordered pair where they cross. So I've done steps 1 and 2. Now I'm going to do number 3. Now that I have an exact value of either x or y, in this case I have an exact value for x, which is negative 2. I am going to plug this negative 2, or whatever I have, into an equation. So I'm going to take, I have y equals 4x minus 1. I now know that x equals negative 2, so that means y equals 4. Instead of x, I'm going to use negative 2 times negative 1, leaving me with y equals negative 8 minus 1, meaning y equals negative 9. So now I have an x value and a y value. My last step is to write them as an ordered pair. So my x was negative 2, my y was negative 9. This is my final answer. All right, let's try another one. So I start. You'll notice that this says y equals 6x. So I know that anywhere I see a y, we're so used to it just being y equals 2, or y equals 4, or y equals 8, or negative 6. But this is telling me that y is the same as 6x's. They are balanced. So anywhere I see a y, I'm going to replace it with this 6x. So right now I have 2x plus 3y equals negative 20. I'm going to replace, because I know that y equals 6x's, I can replace it right there. So I take 2x plus 3, and I'm going to replace y with 6x equals negative 20. It told me that y equaled 6x's, so I just replaced my y with 6x's. And now I simplify and solve. So this would be 2x plus 18x equals negative 20. 18x's and 2x's are 20x's equal to negative 20. My last step is to divide to get x all by itself. X equals negative 1. I now have my x value. I now need to find my y value. So once I found an exact one, now I know exactly what x equals. X equals -1. So now I replace. I take one of my equations. It does not, I'm going to show you that it doesn't matter which one you do. So if I did this, I'd have y equals 6x. Well, we know that x equals -1. So y equals 6 times -1, which means y equals -6. Let's say that we chose this one right here. It would be more work, but you should get the same answer. So I'm going to do it in pink. So we have 2. I said that x, let me just write the whole thing. 2x plus 3y equals -20. Okay, I'm going to replace x with -1 because I told you x is -1. So this would be 2 times -1 plus 3y equals -20. Now I have -2 plus 3y equals -20. I'm going to add 2 to both sides because I'm trying to solve for y, leaving me with 3y equals -18. I need y all by itself, leaving me with y equals -6. So you could see I got that y is at -6 in either equation. That's why it doesn't matter what where you replace it. Our final answer, our x value is -1, our y value is -6. This means if we were to graph these two, that's where they would cross, at -1, -6. But you're not always going to be able to graph them, so you need to understand how substitution works. All right. Again, we're looking to see if one of them has been solved for y. This one has been solved for y. This tells me, it doesn't say y equals 12. It tells me anywhere I see a y, I'm going to replace that y with -2 minus 2x. Because that's what y equals. Y equals this whole thing right here. So I'm going to start this one, and then I'm going to give you a minute to try and solve it, and then we'll check it. So I have 5x plus 3y equals -8. This tells me that y equals this right here. So I'm going to replace my y with that, leaving me with 5x plus 3 times my y value, which happens to be -2 minus 2x, equal to -8. If you've substituted right, you should be able to see that before I had an x and a y, but now I have the same variable. And that's what you're trying for, is the same variable. So now I have 5x minus 6 minus 6x equals -8. All right, finish solving that. Once you get what x equals, I want you to plug it into either equation. Now, I personally would plug it into this one because it's already solved for y. If not, you're going to have to resolve this whole thing. So find x. Once you know exactly what x equals, plug it into one of those equations. And then come back and check. All right, I hope you really did pause so that you can see if you understand what you're doing so you're prepared for the assignment. So again, it's all about substituting. If you finish this, I showed my work in pink. If you did it correctly, you should have ended up with x equals 2. Now I know exactly what x equals. Anywhere I see an x, I'm going to substitute it or replace it with 2. So I chose to use this first equation. So I said y equals -2 minus 2x. So I replaced my x with 2, simplified and solved that equation, leaving you, if you did it correctly, you should have had -2 and -6 as your ordered pair. All right. Your last one gets a little bit trickier because you'll notice neither of those have been solved for y. So we have 2x minus 3y equals -11, and we have 2x plus y equals 9. This is where this first step comes in. You need to solve one of the equations for the x or the y. I'm going to choose to solve for y because this y is already just y. There's nothing that I have to end up dividing by. So I'm going to take my first equation, and I'm going to solve for y. I want to get y alone. So I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides, which will leave me with y equals 9 minus 2x. Now I know, I don't know the exact value of y, but I know wherever I see a y, I can replace it with 9 minus 2x. So now I'm going to retake my y, and I'm going to replace it right there. So I'm going to have 2x minus 3 times 9 minus 2x equals negative 11. Again, you can see originally I had an x and this was a y, but I told you y is equal to 9 minus 2x. So now I solve like I've been doing. 2x minus 27. I'm distributing that through just so you know. And negative 3 times negative 2 is positive 6x equals negative 11. All right, take a minute and solve this and see if you can find your final answer. I'm going to put our final answer this time in pink down here. So push pause, finish solving, and find your exact value for x. X should equal just a number now, and then plug it back into one of your equations. If you pause like you were supposed to, I've shown my work, so this first section is right here. You should have gotten x equals 2. Now that I know x is 2, I take and I replace x here, or you could replace it there, it doesn't matter. And then I chose to replace it here. So I had 2 times 2, because I know that x is 2, plus y equals 9. Once I solve for that, I get 5. So your ordered pair, your solution where they're going to cross is at the point 2, 5.